Hi guys, this is Taylor and I'm here today with my June wrap-up. If you remember my last video, my mom actually ended up doing my voiceover because my throat was really bothering me. I did not have strep, I had allergies, ? And a muscle strain, ? But thank you very much for the well wishes. I would say I had a relatively successful June and Japanese June. I read 5 things and 4 of those were from my official Japanese June TBR. So let's get right into it. The first thing I finished in June, I finished first because I actually started at the end of May, and that was Underground, The Tokyo Gas Attack, and The Japanese Psyche by Haruki Murakami. This is one of his few works of nonfiction, and it takes a look at this terrorist attack that happened in Tokyo that I would have never been aware of if not for this book. It's really an event that we seem to have no knowledge of in the US. In 1995, a fringe religious cult brought packets of sarin onto strategic subway lines in Tokyo, punctured the bags, and left. 12 people died and more than 1,000 were treated for injuries. This book consists of interviews with mostly victims and their families, but also with members of the cult who were not directly involved. My main criticism of this book would be that beyond the interviews, which for their part are very well-conducted, solid interviews, there are very few sections of Murakami's own opinions. So it's mostly one interview after another with just very few connecting parts. It made the whole thing feel a little less cohesive than I would have liked. As I said, the interviews are all very well done and well edited, but I would have just liked a little bit more of an attempt to piece them all together. But overall, glad to have picked this up. I really genuinely don't think I would have ever learned about this event otherwise, and I gave this one 3 stars. The next book I finished in June was Out by Natsuo Kirino. This is about a woman who strangles her deadbeat husband and then has a body on her hands. She works nights at a boxed lunch factory, and several women from the factory actually help her to dispose of the body, and then everyone involved kind of gets drawn into the seedy underbelly of Japan. I fully enjoyed this and was genuinely surprised at how dark and nasty it is, just considering how popular it is. There was something almost meticulous about the characterization here. I just believed all of the main characters' motivations completely, even if the scenarios were actually kind of far-fetched if you thought about it, but everyone just felt intimately real. I just felt like this was a very smart and very well done, nasty book. Pretty much the only problem I had with this came at the very end. For all of the meticulous characterization that I talked about, the very last thing to happen was not very in character. It wasn't enough to completely take me out of the story, but it was just kind of disappointing to have the ending not come together the same way. But for the most part, I did really enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars. The next thing I finished in June was, shockingly, The Makioka Sisters by Junichiro Tanizaki. I did start this last year for Japanese June, which means that technically it took me over a year to read. This is a family saga that centers on the aristocratic Makioka family as they mostly just try and find a husband for their 3rd youngest daughter, Yukiko, because she has reached the age of like 35 or something. And this spans several years and ends right when World War II is really heating up. I would say overall that I did like this. I think I will look back on the reading experience fondly, but it was just kind of exhausting. This actually read a little bit like Russian literature to me, in that there are so many characters and trying to keep track of who's who was just such a juggling act. There's also not a whole lot of plot. What I would really consider this book's strength is its ability to place you within the setting. It was very, very interesting to see what an upper middle class family living in Osaka in the 1930s would be like, what their day-to-day would be like. It was very transportive in that way, and that's what will probably stay with me the most. I don't know that I would particularly recommend this one though, unless you maybe have a better appetite for classics than I do. I gave The Makioka Sisters 3 stars. I'm glad to have finally conquered it. it was just very long. That's what I'm saying. It was very, very long. It's also worth mentioning that this book has the single worst last sentence that I've ever read. Like, full stop. And if you're interested, I would go out and find a copy, maybe in a bookstore, and just read the last sentence. It won't spoil anything for you, it's just horrible. My second to last book was not on my Japanese June TBR, but honestly it should have been, and if I was thinking, I would've. The 5th volume of the Eternal Editions of Sailor Moon came out in June, and it was amazing, obviously. I'm obsessed with this reprint, and it continues to be worth every penny to me. And one specific thing that I do want to mention is that there's a lot of gender stuff that happens in the later arcs of Sailor Moon, and a lot of it really informed my conception of gender when I was younger. The last translation by Kodansha Comics, it didn't handle it in my favorite way, but this translation got it spot on, hit me right in the feelings. I love it so much, and I'm so glad that they handled it the way that they did. So 5 stars. Again, obviously. And on a very different note, the last book that ended up completing for Japanese June was Ghosts of the Tsunami, Death and Life in Japan's Disaster Zone by Richard Lloyd Parry. This is a work of nonfiction by an English journalist who has lived in Japan for a number of years, and this takes a look at the 2011 tsunami that struck northeast Japan and focuses in on this one elementary school that was particularly devastated. What was most interesting to me was that this also takes a look at how the culture of Japan played into the disaster. So, for example, how ancestor worship plays into the grieving process. And I can't really overstate how well done this was. One of the things I worry most about when you have a journalist who's writing about a country that's foreign to them is that I worry that they're going to insert themselves into the narrative. He completely avoids that here, and he manages to tell this story in a way that is really just like a gut punch. The writing is very effective. I hesitate to call it beautiful because of the subject matter, but it really is well written, and I feel genuinely grateful to have picked this up and to have read about this story. My only critique of this would be that the way that we follow the characters and the way that the narrative jumps around, it did make it pretty difficult to follow who was who and who was related to who, so that was unfortunate, but still I would probably give this about 4.5 out of 5 stars. Very, very good. So that was my Japanese June this year. Once again, I didn't get to everything that I had hoped to, but I literally never have. So let me know if you read anything good this month, and definitely let me know if you participated in Japanese June. I don't know if anybody did, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!